Hello, nobody, or maybe everybody. So, I've been thinking today about something that I don't really wish to get off my chest or talk about as such. But I don't have much else to do. I'm a bit bored. I've done a million job applications, so let's get into it. It's going to sound crazy as per. But I've been thinking about longevity escape velocity, which means basically the point at which we, as humanity, are able to reverse aging faster than we age. So biological immortality, kind of, yeah, or indefinite lifespan. Probably indefinite lifespan and quality of life as well. And I'm looking at Dr. David Sinclair and a few other people like Brian Johnson, who's not a doctor, but he does. I think he's actually done his own research and published some things. Actually, funded some stuff as well. I'm not entirely sure with who. Life Sciences. There's a bunch of stuff coming out, and if you look at Dr. David Sinclair, his work on resveratrol and other things is potentially dubious. I actually think he was right about resveratrol, and he got poo-pooed by the academic community, but that's irrelevant. The work he's doing now with Yamanaka factors, trying to reverse aging in cells, does look promising, and I don't know that much about it because I'm not a biology student, but a lot of the top people seem to share the consensus that the work he's doing at the moment does hold some promise, and it does look like it could reverse aging potentially entirely or to some degree. Now he's saying, and this is a claim from him that I don't really think is justified. I don't really understand, but I should probably read his research to get an understanding of it. But he says it reverses aging by 75%. How do you prove that? And I think this is a bigger issue in the kind of anti-aging community, is what is proof of reversal of aging? First off, that's a big thing. But let's say it's 75% reversal. What does that mean? Does that mean a 75% reversal of someone who's 100 would get them back to being 25, or because they're really, really high up on the aging spectrum, would they go to 35 because actually the cells are older than their actual, age in terms of time value age, right? What does that mean? I don't really know. Does it mean that over 8 weeks or 12 weeks or however long it takes to do 75% age reversal, that I could reverse my biological age by 75%, yeah, and get back to, what would that be? I'm 34, 7.5, 10. Well, we'll call it 10. We'll call it, it's actually not, it's like 8 or 9 years of age. Let's say 10, right? Could I then take that therapy again and go down to a biological age of 2.5? Isn't that technically impossible because a 2.5-year-old boy doesn't have sperm cells and hasn't gone through puberty? I don't really understand that marker and how that figure's been arrived at. I am ignorant to the facts and to the biology. I'm pretty much living off hype, and a lot of professionals have got consensus on this. Even people who are not proponents of his, people who don't like him, are saying this does look like promising research. So I'm going on their opinions, super speculation, and the fact that a lot of people are starting to put money into longevity research and seem to believe it's viable now, this whole kind of reversing the aging clock. And in fact, the Dr. David Sinclair stuff, the Yamanaka factor stuff, OSK, reversal of epigenetic aging, that trial is already in progress now. The first human trial is in progress. So what he said is we'll know soon if it's possible. That statement I don't know if I agree with. He would know more than me, let's be real. He's been doing this basically his whole life. But what he is saying is, or what I would translate that to is, OSK this next year or whatever, or however long these trials take, will determine whether OSK is a viable life extension / aging reversal technology, which, yeah, I completely agree with. But we're not really here to talk about the viability of that specifically. There'll be other mechanisms to reverse biological aging, or extend healthy lifespan, or whatever. Yeah, really what I'm here to discuss is the implications of that and what I foresee in the future. So personally, now there's a few criticisms of this. There's one big criticism, I can't remember who made this criticism, but cloned animals that were relatively healthy were cloned 68 times and had a relatively normal health span for each process of being cloned. But they developed loads and loads of harmful mutations over those periods. The further down the cloning line they went, the more mutations they developed. I would argue that that's maybe irrelevant, because that would be relevant if you were 62, but as an 18-year-old you can probably deal with these negative mutations, as in 16 biologically, not chronologically. So maybe that's not relevant. And by the time you've lived 400, 500 years into the future, unless everything develops linearly, I'm pretty sure we'll have figured the solution to that out. So I think that's a bit of a non-starter opinion there. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Longevity, I believe it's going to happen. I think I will be one of few humans who live to be 400 or 500 or have an indefinite lifespan as such. So let's say soon we'll have people who live for 500 to 1,000 years. Yeah, let's say 500, because someone like me, I'm pretty high risk. I'll go to dangerous countries. Sometimes I don't look properly when I cross the road. So someone like me, because this isn't substrate immortality and consciousness upload, and I'm just talking about biological indefinite lifespan. Someone like me will eventually be shot in some kind of gang-related incident, not because I'm a gangster, but because I don't care what kind of dangerous country or street I'm in and what kind of dangerous street I'm walking down. And so that could lead me to being shot at any time, essentially, or car accidents, whatever. So we're going to go on like a 500-year lifespan, and a 500-year healthy lifespan, living in your prime or close to your prime for most of those 500 years because of age reversal technology. Yeah. So I'll try and go through two different routes. So one is technology doesn't progress apart from longevity extension, which is kind of boring. And I haven't thought about it, but I'll think about that first and go through that first. And the second being what I think the progression will look like as other tech advances. So let's go for the first option. 500-year lifespan on the Earth as it is, minor replacement by AI, linear. I mean, it's already exponential, like technology expansion, but let's say it's linear. Like this is the furthest exponent it gets, and now it all becomes linear. Progress becomes linear over 500 years. A lot of things are going to change. So right now, there's kind of a divide, and this is relevant to both paths, but there's a divide between opinions on what you should do with your life, how you should spend, like, the prime of your life. Now me, I'm a good example of the hare, not the tortoise. So the tortoise and the hare. So from 21 onwards, I travelled, I changed jobs, I did this thing, that thing, and lived for pure excitement and thrills. Kind of subconsciously knowing that I would never get the time back. And time is one thing you can't get, that healthy time. And now I'm kind of going through the, spending a bit to invest, or like, planning out my future kind of thing. Yeah, because I've run through those good experiences and I've had enough in my life. Yeah. And so there is an argument for that, a legitimate argument to say, well, don't waste, your youthful energy from 16 to 25 chasing money and building a future. You've got a lot of time. Enjoy that time. Party, see things, explore the world, make mistakes. And I think there's a good argument for that. And then there's a good argument for saying, well, that's the peak of your time. And if from 18 to 25 you invest really hard and work on your career, then you've set yourself up for like a relatively good standard of living for the rest of your life. And if you can push from 25 to 30 to put just a little bit of effort and then start enjoying your life, then you'll have like a good quality of life for a few years, some memorable experiences, and you'll set yourself up to be upper middle class or above for the rest of your life. And so there's an argument for both camps right now. And there are some people who'll take the hare for their entire life, who gives a damn about compounding interest and expanding your horizons, because from their perspective, you're going to die when you're 60 or 70, so just go as mad as you can in that time. And like I say, there's an argument for that. But if things were to stay as they are, except the lifespan, continue to improve, and we had these 500-year lifespans, healthy lifespans as well, in the prime of your health, prime energy for the rest of your life, then I think most people would spend sort of maybe 2 or 3 years, like investing in S&P 500 or whatever, and then spend a couple of years, having not necessarily super crazy experiences, but enjoying life a bit and working a bit, because the tortoise, the invest quickly and let compounding interest and whatever work on your behalf, in that scenario, is quite doable. You can spend a total of 20 years of your life and live the next 340, 400 years in your prime with a good financial base. So I think people will go towards the kind of tortoise way of living, tortoise versus the hare, tortoise way of living. I think a lot of relationships will break down, like long-term relationships, because over a lifetime, you may keep your friends. Some people will keep their friends for 30, 40, 50 years. I probably will. I probably would under like normal circumstance. And, the thing is, your friends change, you change paths, and sometimes, you lose each other. Sometimes you make these compromises because your time's limited and you value them and the personal connection, even though you're on totally different life paths, right? But I think over a 500-year period, that divergence becomes so extreme that eventually you just have to make new friends. I think even family, parents, oh, I love my mum, I love my dad, oh, I love my grandma. They're going to die. You see them getting older. You know that you're going to die soon, and they've imparted this wisdom, and when you were very young, they had an influence on your life, whether positive or negative. So there's a very strong attachment to that. But if your parents, started reverse aging, and then you guys lived another 100 years, well, let's say you're 20, yeah? Your parents are 40, your grandparents are 65, yeah? And in 100 years' time, you would be 120, your parents would be 140, and your grandparents would be 160. And because not much has changed, the saturation of like experience and knowledge, there wouldn't be much of a gap in terms of knowledge and understanding and maturity between you and your own older family members. There wouldn't be the same dynamic of, looking after the younger generations, because we're living on very, very finite time. At that stage, you'll probably outgrow your parents. They might outgrow you. To do 30 to 40 or 50 years of looking after your kids and grandkids is one thing, but to do it over 400 years when they're fully independent, I think it's a big enough burden that it will shatter a lot of families. I think a lot of this kind of blood is thicker than water stuff, I don't know, I think it's going to be remade, honestly. I think it's going to be very much what ideas do align with is how the future's going to go. People are going to get very bored of a lot of things. You're going to see really extreme entertainment, really, really high stakes stuff where there's like a 1 in 10 chance of death, because people are bored of life, and because it's going to be so much more meaningful and impactful to be at or witness an event like that. Because once you've done 200 years, if you had a relatively good amount of money, you didn't need to work, and you were here for 200 years, in your prime health and things aren't changing that much, there's not much more to experience. There's not much more to see, right? So you're going to see extreme entertainment events and stuff like that in that kind of future. Yeah, and I think that applies to scenario 2. Now let's move on to scenario 2, where things move exponentially. This is more interesting. So I still think the whole tortoise over the hare strategy will still prevail, but there's some caveats to that. You're still going to have to be quite dynamic and an active person to continuously benefit from that. So it's not going to be a passive thing where you put money in the S&P 500 for 20 years and then just do what you want for 400. It won't be like that. It would be more like you put your money in whatever assets, and then after 5 years, because of the exponential change in technology, you get the next thing, you get the next thing, and it would exponent. So you'd be always like, but I'm going to be a businessman, I'm going to be a pirate, I'm going to be this. At some point, you know, we'd have Mars colonies, we'll have people who own entire planets and planet infrastructure. We're probably going to end up with like space pirates and intergalactic piracy and stuff. So, and I might be interested in that, not because I'm evil, just because imagine being one of the first intergalactic pirates in the world. That's incredible. Imagine that. Imagine owning a quarter of a planet's mining operations. Yeah, there are people who probably do that now. Actually, there's probably somebody who owns a quarter of the mining assets or something, some equivalent thing in some equivalent industry. McDonald's, yeah, who own like a massive portion of a planet's something or other. Yeah, but let's say we get to Mars in 20 or 30 years, we start learning new physics rules, or not, doesn't really matter. In 200 years, colonizing planets really, really far out, making new landmass of planets out of different atoms and molecules, because we've pretty much figured out alchemy. For a moderate investor, it might not be that unreasonable for them to own a planet. Maybe not the size of Earth, but maybe like a 20th or 50th the size of Earth. That might not be that unrealistic, which is incredible. I'd love to own a little planet, 50th the size of Earth. That would be amazing. Not even to do anything with, just to know that that's like as a landmark of humanity's progression. I would keep it. Not even just for any personal purpose other than that. Just wow, that's incredible. You know, look how far we've come, type thing. I think people will actually diverge faster away from each other in the exponential age than they would in the first scenario. So this whole diverging away from your family thing, that'll take 100, 200 years in the first scenario. In the second scenario, where you're able to have cybernetic implants, you're able to do interstellar travel, there's just so much happening so far away and so many kind of diverging ideas and possibilities that the fallout between like relationships, it will just happen quicker and more drastically. And again, people will align on ideas and principles. Like nation states will be abolished eventually. When there's 40 planets actively colonized, the nation state on one of them it'll be galactic entities. You'll have like super capitalistic, imperialistic, expansionist factions. You'll have probably have weird abstract stuff like the consciousness revolution, like an expansion of veganism, basically, where it goes even more extreme and they get into saying that everything is conscious, which might be true. Yeah, so they might disagree with the miners and imperialists who expand to other planets because they're consciously harming the rocks and the minerals there, which sounds crazy, but might not be crazy in 200 years' time. Yeah. So I think that hyper future, it's going to be very fast. There's going to be unlimited upside and downside. It's not going to be like the first version of the future. It'll be very exciting. So here's the thing I thought of as well. Maybe we'll be able to travel to our own personalized universes and dimensions that other people can never access and live there permanently as essentially gods, which sounds insane, all right? And that is very speculative, and it's a bit of a crazy claim. I'm not claiming it will happen. This is a possibility. I believe it's more probable that it will, because the world is going towards more and more craziness and chaos, and entropy is kind of saying that the least probabilistic stuff will eventually happen. So I do think that's going to happen in time. But if you look at it now from like maybe existing physics, maybe it's not possible by what we believe, our definitions of things. I don't know, I'm not a physicist. But there are so many unknowns that will be uncovered by superintelligence that there might be things that we just don't understand and never will have the capacity to understand that allow us to pass these limits. New physics, new laws of science, new whatever, yeah. Maybe new abuses of logic, like we would say things aren't possible because they don't fit into a certain logic gate. Things are either true or they're false. They could be in a state of true or false, but there's nothing else beyond that. But we don't know that's true. Logic might be completely manipulable, and there might be logical probabilities and things that completely fit outside of our understanding that are possible. Yeah. So the second scenario, where technology keeps on expanding, it will just get crazier and crazier, more and more divergent. And the further away you like cast predictions, the harder it is to really see what the future is going to be like. I couldn't make a prediction really even 5 years out, truthfully. I could speculate on one 20 to 40 years out, sure. But I don't really know. Even 5 years, I don't really know now. But with the first scenario where it's linear, it would be much easier to comprehend. It's much easier to predict for because it's the same progression without the exponential of the progress that we're seeing right now. It would be quite easy to see that. The second one, like for example, 20 years we'll probably be colonizing Mars. And on a 500 to 1,000 year lifespan, 20 years is nothing. It's nothing at all. By that point, 20 or 40 years from now, we might have got a better understanding of consciousness. So we may have infinite substrate for ourselves to expand on. So that would be true immortality. Or there's this idea that your consciousness could be hacked and corrupted or whatever. Okay, fine, but in theory it might be possible. I'm saying it might. I'm not saying it is right now as it stands. I'm saying it might be in the future. Asteroid mining, sort of infinite resource capacity. So the second scenario, like a fast takeoff, it would just be mental. There would be so many crazy things you could do, like simulating being an eagle. Yeah, it doesn't sound that fantastic, but that's just a new, like that's something people might do. Simulating like worlds with completely different physics laws. So many things could happen in the sort of simulated space and the real space. That would just be crazy. I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping that's where we go, this super exponential age where it gets crazier and crazier. I'm looking to own a couple of planets 300 years from now. But yeah, that's really all I've got to talk about. Bit of a crazy speculative topic. That's it. Enjoy life.